Hi, my name is Bethany, and I make videos about living with charcot-marie-tooth disease. And today I want to talk to you about the foot surgeries I had that radically changed my life. They took me from this to this. And 10 years ago when I had these surgeries, I looked online for information and there just was almost nothing there. And even today, there's still not a lot of information online, at least not from the patient perspective. So I hope that this will be helpful to some of you. I've talked a little bit on this channel about the muscle imbalances in the hands that you see with CMT. And you see the same thing with the feet. Because of the way CMT affects the nerves, some muscles get weaker and other muscles stay stronger. And ultimately, these stronger muscles overpower the weak ones and cause a ton of trouble. Years and years of that imbalanced muscle pull can lead to a deformity of the feet called Cavovarus foot. And all that means is that you have a foot with a really high arch and a heel that is turning inward. And that's exactly what happened to me. By the time I was 18 years old, my feet looked like this. They were curled, pointing in and downwards, heels that were turning in and collapsed on me as soon as I tried to stand up. If you have feet like these, I don't need to tell you the effect it has on your quality of life. I couldn't walk or even stand without leg braces. And the walking I did do was incredibly painful due to the pressure sores caused by how my feet had curled. And I tried the bracing route. I actually had an excellent orthotist. But even he told me that my feet were just too affected for him to brace them properly and to eliminate that pain. So in 2010, I was in a surgeon's office in Detroit, Michigan. He'd been recommended by my local CMT Center of Excellence, and he told me that he could fix it. But he was casual about it. He said, you're going to need this at some point in the next 10 to 15 years, but it's up to you when, because it's a lot to sign up for. So I went to another surgeon for a second opinion, because you should always get a second opinion. And this surgeon agreed with the first one. But he delivered his message a little bit more bluntly. He told me that he would destroy and rebuild my feet. Destroy really was not a word I was hoping to hear that day in relation to my body parts. But he said something else. He'd seen me, an 18-year-old girl, have to be wheeled into his office that day. And he told me, don't put this off. Do it now. It will change your life. I thought about that for a couple weeks, and ultimately I decided to take a year off of school and do it now. But I decided to go with the first surgeon because he had a lot more experience with CMT patients. We scheduled 2 surgeries that would take place 4 months apart. He would do my left foot first, and then my right. Now, I want to tell you a bit about the procedures he did, but first I want to say a major disclaimer, which is this field is constantly changing. Methods and best practices for surgery are constantly developing. I'm sure they've changed a lot just in the last decade since I had these surgeries done. And also, every patient is unique. So when I'm describing these surgeries, my point is really just to tell you the types of issues that surgery can be used to address, and not to give you some perfect CMT surgery prescription because that doesn't exist. He performed 2 osteotomies on me, and an osteotomy just means that you are cutting into bone. Your first metatarsal bone is the big bone connected to your big toe. And in me, that bone was actually tilted downwards. So he cut that bone, he elevated it, and then he secured it with a nice little plate. Isn't that cute? The other osteotomy he did was on my calcaneus bone, also known as your heel bone. And that was the bone that was tilted inwards. So that one too, he sawed it in half, he realigned it, and he secured it with 2 giant screws. And the goal behind those 2 osteotomies was to give me a foot that was flat again, that I could stand on. A lot of patients notice that they have really tight Achilles tendons in the back of their calves. And I had what you see a lot with CMT patients. It's called an Equinus contracture. And it meant that my calf was so tight that it was impossible for me to bring my foot into a neutral position. It just wanted to be pointed downwards all the time. So what he did was he actually made an incision in my gastrocnemius muscle in my calf, and that allowed those tendons in my calf to be lengthened, and it gave me much more range of motion in my ankle again. He also did 2 tendon transfers on me, and this goes back to what we were talking about with the muscle imbalances. I think it is so crazy and cool that you can actually take a tendon that's pulling too much in one direction over here, cut it, take it over here, or reattach it somewhere else so it's pulling in a new direction. That is just nuts, but it works. And he did 2 tendon transfers on me. He transferred my Flexor digitorum longus tendon and my posterior tibialis tendon. He also released my plantar fascia, and the plantar fascia is just this nice thick ligament on the sole of your foot, which in CMT often gets super tight. So he put some incisions in that tendon to release it, which helped to flatten that really high arch and give me some flexibility again in my foot. There is one procedure I saw in my post-op report called a tarsal tunnel release, and he actually never talked about that one with me. And even looking in the literature, I don't see a lot about it for CMT patients. What I understand is that it's actually usually used to release an entrapped nerve in this space between your ankle bones. So that may have been something that when he was inside my ankle poking around, he noticed that and did that proactively or in conjunction with another procedure. Another thing he did when he was working inside my ankle was repair some ligament damage, because it turns out that when you are walking on the outside of your feet all the time, you are actually causing some damage inside your feet. So that's all of the procedures in really brief, broad strokes. And now I want to show you the results. To illustrate the difference, here is a picture after my left foot had been operated on and healed, and before my right one had. And you can see the visual change is stunning. My foot was straight again. I actually had a heel that I could stand on. And 4 months later, I had a right foot that matched the left. These results were visually stunning, and that surgeon was right. They were totally life-changing. I was able to give away my wheelchairs. I could walk again without pain. I still needed to wear leg braces because I still had some degree of foot drop, but I could walk without pain. And I could also walk around my house barefoot. I could stand in a shower barefoot. And because I was out of the wheelchairs, I was able to be more active and get stronger. And 2 years after my last surgery, I was even able to complete a 7-mile fundraising walk to raise money for CMT research. I am really glad that that surgeon pushed me to do those surgeries when I did. But in retrospect, I also realize now that I was really lucky. I know a lot of other people with CMT who went to equally experienced surgeons and their surgeries didn't work out as well as mine did. Some of them wish they had never had the surgeries at all. And I can't imagine being in that place because surgery, even at its best, is a brutal experience to go through. And it's also important to remember that, well, hopefully these surgeries will last me my lifetime. My disease will continue to progress. And there's no guarantees what the future will hold in terms of my feet. So surgery is not a miracle cure, but in my case, it's the closest thing to a miracle I've ever experienced. There's so much more I could share with you about surgery. There's some mistakes I made, a lot of things I wish I had known before I had these done, especially when it comes to recovering in the hospital. If that's something you'd like to hear more about, let me know and I'll record those videos. And please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. I also wrote a lot about my surgery experience in my book, How Should a Body Be?, if you want to read about it there. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.